Shalom, I'm Rabbi Jonathan Ginsburg. This is number 9 in the series of videos about 100 questions that Jews should know the answer to. And this one is about Jewish history. 85. Who was Ezra? What was his importance? Ezra lived in the 4th century. He was a major figure. In fact, there's a book named after him in the final section of the Bible. And he was a major figure when the Jews came back from the Babylonian dispersion to rebuild the temple. He read the Torah to them in public. He urged the men to abandon their non-Jewish wives, which is, of course, a hot issue today, and basically was responsible for girding up people to continue the temple, to renew their Jewish covenantal experience, and to focus again on the Torah. 86. Identify Hillel and the Pharisees. What are some of Hillel's famous sayings? Hillel was a great sage, lived in the 1st century. The Pharisees were the precursors of the modern rabbis. The main groups at the time were the Pharisees, who believed in the oral law, and they believed in studying Torah and praying. The Sadducees did not believe in the oral law or the afterlife, and they were the ones responsible for the sacrifices. The Essenes were basically the chaste and group that lived in the Dead Sea community, and then there were the Zealots. Hillel, some of his famous statements were, for example, if I am only for myself, what am I? If I am not for myself, who will be? If not, now when? Very many famous statements quoted in Pirkei Avot and quoted extensively in the oral law of the Mishnah. 87. Who was Robbie Kiva? What was his connection with the Talmud? Robbie Kiva was the greatest sage of the 2nd century. He led a revolt against Rome by backing Bar Kokhba in 132 to 135. The famous story is he didn't start studying the alphabet until he was 40, became the greatest sage of that century. 88. What is the meaning of midrash? Well, it really means to seek and inquire, but they're stories based on the Torah to kind of fill in the Torah. For example, in my one about Abraham, mentioned that the sages told a story that the reason God picked him was he picked God. That his father was an idol maker, the Torah doesn't say that, and that he once destroyed his father's idols and came to teach his father about the one God. Define the term halacha, 89. Well, it's based on the word to walk, and it means the practical applied Jewish law today. What is the halacha? What is the law on that matter? 90. Define diaspora and draw a map showing chronologically the rise of the Jewish communities outside of Israel. Well, can't draw a map this way. Diaspora are the Jewish communities outside of Israel, and obviously the map looks different today than it did 100 years ago. Today, the largest Jewish populations outside of Israel are, of course, the United States, large Jewish community in South America, significant communities in France and England. Some Jews are moving back to other countries in Europe. Of course, there's still Jewish communities in various countries in Europe. There used to be, before 1948, about 750,000 Jews in the Arab lands, but they were expelled from there without any compensation after Israel became a state. Of course, before the Holocaust, there were 3.3 million Jews in Poland, and Hitler and the Nazis killed 3 million of them, 90%. Germany, there were 300,000 before the Holocaust, so the map keeps changing. 91. Who is Moses Maimonides? What did he write, and why is he regarded as the foremost Jewish philosopher? Well, the book on Jewish philosophy he wrote was Moreh Nevuchim, Guide for the Perplexed, a great philosophical analysis of Judaism. He lived 1135 to 1204. He was a doctor. He also wrote the first major code of Jewish law called the Mishnah Torah, and really an Aristotelian rationalist, certainly one of the great giants of Judaism. He's buried in Tiberias. And on his grave it says, from Moses to Moses, there was no one like Moses. From the first Moses to Moses Maimonides. 92. What is the importance of the guidebook Shulchan Aruch? Can a Jew live by it today? Shulchan Aruch is the major code of Jewish law, following Maimonides, really written by Joseph Caro. And it's still basically the major code of Jewish law for Orthodox Jews. Of course, there are some interpretations, and there's some things that were around today that weren't around in the 15th century, but it's still considered the major code of Jewish law. 93. What is a Hasid? Why did the Hasidic movement of the 19th century contribute to modern Judaism? What is the Lubavitcher movement? I have a video, Hasidim 101. You can watch that. Basically, modern-day Hasidim started in 1700 with the Baal Shem Tov. Contributed a great sense of joy, of basically they're the major mystics that are around still today. They have many important concepts, but very God-focused. Let me cleave to God all the days of my life is one of their major ideas, or place God before me all the days of my life. The Bavitch movement is one sect of Hasidim. They're the main ones who dress in modern garb. They don't wear the first shtreimels, for example. Today, they wear business suits, but they're definitely Hasidim, and they're the main group that does outreach. That's why they're all over the place. They send young couples to every kind of city you can imagine, trying to stimulate Jewish life. Last question in this section, 94. What is the world Jewish population today? American Jewish population. Why are we so concerned about a declining Jewish population? World population, it's hard to know, is 13 to 14 million, although there are many, many people that have some Jewish blood out there because Jews have spread. The very sad fact is we're about 2% of what we should be. Scholars estimate if there had been no mass murders of Jews so often in Jewish history, there'd be about 700 million Jews today. Or if we'd been allowed to have our own homeland. Former Prime Minister Netanyahu told the Chinese leader, how come they got 1 billion and the Indians have 1.5 billion and the Indians in India have 1 billion and we've all been around the same amount of time? He said because we didn't have our homeland for 2,000 years. American Jewish population, well, they just found another million by re-examining data from the last study. There's about 6 million. We're concerned about declining Jewish population because the Jewish birth rate is not replacing itself, and we need Jewish numbers to be meaningful to continue to survive. This concludes this video. The next one and last one will be on Israel.